Hi, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. This is the Snarlagon version, the Snarlagon edition. Did I get that pronunciation
You did. You nailed it. Perfect.
perfect? It's also on the wall behind you. I just realized that
Oh
as I was
yeah,
hitting
yeah. I got
record.
some art up over here. That's right.
Yeah, talking with creator Andrew MacLean. So I'll say thank you again for
Sure.
jumping
Yeah.
on.
Thanks for having me on. I'm really
Yeah,
excited to chat comics today.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I always get to talk comics, and I see a 2001. Is that Space Odyssey going
Oh
on
yeah,
behind you?
that was the Jack Kirby adaptation of 2001: A Space Odyssey,
Love it.
which is such a bizarre idea already off the bat, but I love it. I love that book in the movie, so it's such a perfect little wall decoration too.
Oh yeah, yeah. But love Kirby, love the movie, and I love reading stories of people that went to see it in the theater when it was out, and they're like, "What is
Yeah,
this?"
can you imagine?
Yeah, yeah. But we could talk about those things some other time. We should talk about your work and what I usually like to do, being the English teacher kind of person, is I like to name a couple of titles at the beginning, but I would also like to hear a little bit about the history. So I'll mention that Headlopper is probably the one that folks can go and readily find. You have Snarlagon, which is on the way currently in Kickstarter campaign. Any other titles there that I'm leaving out?
Yeah, we did. Headlopper series is through Image Comics, and
Hmm.
Apocalyptic Girl is a
Apocalyptic.
graphic novel over at Dark Horse.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
Apocalyptic Girl. Yes. Um, and one of the things I love about Headlopper in particular is that it sounds like, a violent story. There's a level of violence, but there's also this really sort of colorful, cartoonish sort of world. The landscape of it is very sort of almost unexpected in a way. And there's lots of creativity there, and sort of like the talking heads and things like that, and the magic that comes into the story. So appreciate your work on that, and also appreciate what I've
Oh,
seen at
thanks.
Snarlagon.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a really fun ride. We started Headlopper with self-publishing, some time ago, and it just worked out. It was like I think I printed 100 copies. I thought that would be all I ever did, and I think I gave most of them away, but fast forward, 10 years later, and I think I'm about to start volume 5 here in the next year. So
Nice.
really grateful that I've been able to do so much to that.
Yeah, yeah, very cool indeed. So what was the story of kind of the path to comics and exploring stories this way, visually and verbally and all the things?
I mean, I always, as a kid, I loved the characters in comics. I loved superheroes. I wanted to be a superhero, but I also love to draw, and so the two are very obvious. Combine the two, you got comics.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I just learned to draw by copying comic panels, and I don't really remember a time when I didn't enjoy drawing. It's just something I've always done, and comics was always there.
Hmm.
So that's how it's been.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm gathering both from Snarlagon and sort of the ambiance that there is a kaiju fan at heart here. I'm seeing Godzilla on the wall, of course,
Yeah.
2001: A Space Odyssey, but also is that Ghidorah behind you as well, and a couple of
Yeah,
other
there's a guitar right here. There's
kaiju
some
or
other
kaiju.
kaiju up top.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, even when I'm not working on Snarlagon, or I have a Godzilla comic coming out next week.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, they're always. I love Safubi vinyl toys and stuff, so these are their permanent homes.
Love it, love it.
Yeah, I've just been a fan of monster movies since I was a kid. I always loved them. I always say that, like, inspiration for Headlopper was largely Arnold Schwarzenegger playing Conan, and then Ray Harryhausen's movies like Clash of the
Hmm.
Titans. Those are the two movies that really made me want to do a fantasy story. and draw those things is just thinking about trying to capture that kind of Sunday afternoon movie watching, what's on, cable, and it's always, or Ray Harryhausen or Conan or something. And then, the same thing. It's like I always loved any kind of special effects as a kid, any kind of monster movie. And so I had a friend who was just obsessed with Godzilla. So he showed me so much of it. I don't know how he found it back then, but he had just so much Godzilla, very little of it even translated. And he would just be like, even fast forward through all the human scenes and be like, check this out, check out this fight. You can't understand what they're saying, but it's still really fun. And I feel like if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have learned such an appreciation for it. But yeah, I mean, both Headlopper, Snarlagon, they're very much stories driven so that I can draw, big monsters and stuff. As much as, Headlopper is barbarian fantasy, kind of dark comedy. There's still so many huge, earth, city crushing monsters that it's very much still at its heart at times, kaiju. Like I didn't even realize I was like dying to do a kaiju comic before Snarlagon for years, and then it hit me one day. I was like, how many, giant monsters and Headlopper, have there been? Like, do you really think you haven't done a kaiju story already? But I just can't get enough of it, I guess.
I was about to say you can't get enough kaiju. Like, I was one of those kids who it was Kmart or Rose's or one of those department stores, like looking at those racks of VHS tapes, and I would
Mhm.
always be surprised when there was like a brand new Godzilla VHS tape
Yeah,
fighting
right.
some monster, and there were so many of them. And then there was a novel series later on in the 90s, so
Oh,
big fan of that kind of
oh yeah.
storytelling. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a perfect place for us to talk about Snarlagon and how the story has come to be, um, and what it is that you're trying to accomplish. I've seen a little bit of Snarlagon from what was shared with me from Aaron, and
Yeah.
so loving what I'm seeing of it.
Yeah, so I wanted to draw. I really love the kind of Showa era of Godzilla movies, which is like 60s and 70s, the early era. I like that you can see the artist's hands in the
Hmm.
movies. It's like I like the fact that there's miniatures instead of like B-roll. Instead of like, hey, here's some footage of a tank rolling down the street, they use a miniature. You know what I mean? I love that you can see all these handcrafted things right in the middle of the movie. So I had wanted to for years to make a to draw a kaiju comic that would kind of, you know, like encapsulate that feeling of this is a handmade movie. And so I've, really tried to draw the proportions and the camera angles and little details and textures in this book to kind of feel more like it's like a handmade thing. And so I'm trying
Hmm.
to draw the things to look like toys, rather than real cars. And I'm trying to, you know, mimic some of the camera tricks they would have done in those old movies, forced perspective or something where say there's a scene in Snarlagon where you've got these two kids are seeing Snarlagon. It's like this first reveal. And
Hmm.
Snarlagon's coming up over a hill, but the camera angles are really weird as if they had shot like Snarlagon and then the kids and then overlaid the two image, so I'm trying to do some weird stuff like that so that just it makes you feel like it's not just I'm not trying to capture a monster in a city. I'm trying to capture a movie of a monster in a city, if that
Hmm.
makes
Hmm.
sense. So, and the writing of the story is very much the same. It's really inspired a lot by like camera movies, which are written for largely were made for children, so they're extra corny and they like really force the story to make like the kid the hero, even though he's amongst adults, but somehow the kid becomes the expert or whatever. And so I
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
play with a lot of those themes, a lot of those tropes that you just see in old movies where it's these themes of like, oh, can science stop the monster, or can the military stop the monster, those types of things that we've seen 100,000 times, but I'm trying to do it in a kind of fun new way, bring up be nostalgic and also just remind us what it's like to just kind of give up over analyzing our movies and our stories and just kind
Oh
of
yeah.
sit back and just enjoy it. It's meant to just kind of be fun, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that. And as you're talking about the reveal of Snarlagon, I could totally see that playing out in my head just from hours of VHS tape viewing, fast
Yeah.
forwarding and rewinding.
Right.
I can see that absolutely. And thinking about the magic, the fun that you can have. I mean, how else do you explain the whole Mothra, like people in a box? Like, yeah, just thinking about those sort of fun
Yeah.
places that kaiju stories can go.
Oh yeah, they're all over. Yeah, I had just so much fun, you know, trying to, not take it, very seriously. I had so much fun, like just um trying to capture what's kind of almost like I feel like you can watch some of those old movies and you're both like laughing with and at it. Like there's a little bit of an irony to it that's just like I love it so much. So I'm trying to capture that feeling in there.
Love it. So you also have, or this is the direction of the question, I guess. You have a publishing company, or you're sort of group publishing for yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm a co-owner of this company, Laser Wolf Attack. We
Hmm.
started
Hmm.
by, I was doing my comics with other publishers and everything, and we started that company because I had sold some t-shirts that had sold well. So we started Laser Wolf Attack as a kind of a separate venture outside of comics to do things like, toys and in like in t-shirts and just kind of art focused things that weren't necessarily merchandise for a comic.
Hmm. Hmm.
We've been doing that for 6 years or so. And when it came time to do, I knew this Snarlagon was going to be a short book and a one shot. And Kickstarter has just become this place. It's not really just a charity. Crowdsourcing isn't charity anymore. It's just a venue for whatever project that you want to make. I mean, even publishers go there. So my thought was I would run an experiment. My last few books were through really great publishers, and I've had great relationships and luck with them.
Hmm.
But I was kind of curious, like if I just tried a direct to consumer thing, since I haven't done it in 10 years or so, how would it do? Like if I didn't put it through the machine. And
Hmm.
so it was a book that I've wanted to do forever, and it being so small, the risk seems kind of small, and I just figured it's a good chance to do things the way you want and just give it a shot. And then I because I'd like to go back to Headlopper after this anyways. So
Hmm. Hmm.
and I've got Snarlagon through my company, and that'll be a cool interesting new business venture, and still have my other comics. We do want to publish some more stuff at Laser Wolf Attack. We did a book that I wrote with Alexis Zerid on it. We kickstarted that last November. Um, and that's Alexis is drawing that now. So yeah, so Snarlagon will be our second, kind of. I think Snarlagon will come out first because I'm done drawing it. But yeah, Snarlagon would be our second book that we're doing. I'm looking into maybe doing more, but it's something that we're kind of, taking slow since it's just kind of one of our, many projects we're trying to do right now.
Yeah, yeah, love it. I'm envisioning like Snarlagon action figures. That's in my head, but I tend to
Well,
think
it's
action figure. So,
yeah, that is one of the things that I've got. We've done toys before at Laser Wolf, and so we're planning on doing a Snarlagon toy. It's just such a
nice.
slow process. You don't know how long it's going to take to get something like that made. And so I didn't want to hold up the book, waiting for the toys to be ready. I was like, let's just put the book out there, let the toy be its own thing. But that's the goal. Yeah, I'm in love with, toy design, particularly like kaiju and Japanese toys. So that's the goal with it.
Love it, love it. And I also love how um you're continuing to do work with sort of the machines, the publishers that are out there, but then you're also doing your own thing and exploring the creative ventures. And it's not an either or. You can do
No,
both.
definitely not. Yeah, I think that's a thing is comics, not everybody who reads comics necessarily goes to a comic book store. I feel like there's a whole crowd of comic book readers who like just back a ton of Kickstarters and stuff. You can look at some people at Kickstarter and they've backed like 300 comic book projects. I'm like, holy cow, that's nuts. So it also feels like a chance to possibly hit, a different crowd, publishing ourselves, just because it's going to be in spaces where people aren't maybe normally buying comics.
Yeah, yeah. But as somebody that's seen a little bit of the book, kind of the preview, the promotional materials, and just a fan of, I don't know, genre, is kaiju a genre, subgenre?
I think so, or at least monster movies. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
they definitely, share some trademark similarities amongst them.
yeah. I would say if you're a comics fan, sci-fi fan, fantasy fan, film fan, well worth the time and the look to spend some time on Kickstarter and check it out. So the campaign goes through, you said, about 3 days from this recording.
Yeah, so Tuesday, I don't know what the date is, but yeah, so it's 3 days. Yeah, so like probably August 15th, I think, is our last day. It will be available after that once we got our print run in. So you can get them at artofandrewmaclean.com or laserwolfattack.com. I'm sure they'll be available in both of those places going forward.
Yeah, yeah, cool. You anticipated my next question, which was web spaces, and I'm going to ask you a question that 6 months ago was much simpler.
Yeah.
And that's the social media question. Any places where you're particularly active and would like me to share this video and audio for folks to check out?
Yeah, I'm definitely most active on Instagram,
Hmm.
for sure. I have like a page that gets updated on Facebook, but I'm personally not on there much. Uh, Instagram's the best place, and it's just my name, Andrew MacLean. No, there's no punctuation or anything in there. And I post there, probably 5 times a week, maybe. So pretty active on there.
Awesome, awesome. Well, glad to share about the book. Glad to share about anything that we've missed. Is there anything that we should make sure to include?
No, I don't think so. I mean, just that, there's all kinds of stuff you can get on the Kickstarter. You can get Snarlagon on there, but you can also as add-ons add all kinds of merch, t-shirts, prints and everything, but also like Headlopper books and Apocalyptic Girl and everything as well.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I appreciate the creativity that you're bringing and appreciate what you do. And
So
thanks for
much.
taking a few minutes to talk with me.
Thanks for having me. Had a good time.
My pleasure.